Hi, I'm Ash from DroningON. The FPV racing market is currently flooded with micro brushless quadcopters, but they're all made fairly cheaply and designed for the budget market. If you've got a little bit more money to spend, Walkera now have one as well, and it's called the Rodeo 110. Last year, thanks to buzzflyer.co.uk, we were able to review the large Walkera F210 and the mid-size Rodeo 150. We concluded that they both fly really well straight out of the box and are really well targeted at beginner to intermediate pilots. Walkera clearly needed to introduce something smaller, and that's where the Rodeo 150 fits in. However, with a price tag of around £180 or £200 with a transmitter, it's not cheap. Please be sure to click that subscribe button, comment below, give the video a thumbs up, and be sure to visit Buzzflyer via the link in the video description. So many thanks to buzzflyer.co.uk for sending us the Rodeo 110 for review. Let's have a look inside. This is exactly how it arrived from Buzzflyer. Packaged really neatly. In fact, I might send my Christmas presents to them to be wrapped up, because their wrapping is far better than mine. So the box looks awesome, and Walkera are very good at their packaging and boxing. We can see here that we've got the bind and fly version. This is not the one that includes the transmitter. This retails from Buzzflyer at about £170 without the transmitter, or add another 30 quid and you get the Devo7, which is a very comfortable and very capable transmitter with it. So first thing we get there is an instruction manual. Again, Walkera are very good at bundling that, and that normally talks about the binding process as well, which will be really useful. There's the 110. Now, I'm so used to reviewing budget micro racing quadcopters that this thing immediately makes a really good impression because it just looks so well made. We'll get onto that in a minute. We'll just have a quick look at what else is in the box. So with the bind and fly version, you get a charger for charging the included lithium polymer battery, which is 150 mAh 2S LiPo. Now, you may recognize the size of this from the Rodeo 150. It's exactly the same type and size of battery, so you can actually use the batteries from the 150 with this aircraft as well. I've got a UK plug here, and that's charged simply by plugging it into the balance connector, so that's nice and easy to get you going quickly. We've also got some spare props. There's only actually 4 spare props, but that should be sufficient. These are easily accessible from Buzzflyer and other retailers. And finally, we've got a USB cable, which we use for programming the flight controller, plugging into CleanFlight or Betaflight, whichever this ships with. So that's everything that comes in the box as per the usual Walkera standard. It's all really nice quality, very nicely packaged. Let's have a closer look at the Rodeo 110. So as we've already mentioned, this is a 110 class brushless quadcopter, and it just looks such nice quality. On the top here, we've got the location for the battery. So unlike most of these micro quads, the battery actually mounts on the top and fits in perfectly there. So as mentioned, your 850 mAh batteries from the Rodeo 150 will fit here perfectly. The battery is quite protected as well because of this upper dome here. If you do manage to crash, the battery is probably not going to suffer from any damage. Also because the arms protect it as well. Just below the battery there, we've got channel selection for the VTX. So there are a number of options there. And depending on which VTX you get, or from where you buy the Rodeo 110, you'll get different signal strength. So the FCC version, I think, has a 200 milliwatt transmitter for video, whereas the UK or the European CE version only has a 25 milliwatt. Looking at the front, we've got the camera, which has a little bit of protective tape on there, and the tilt is fortunately adjustable. So we've got quite a bit of varying degree of tilt there. It looks like it goes up to a maximum, I would say, of actually about 50 degrees, which is quite generous, and it rotates down to a negative pitch. In fact, that would prompt some interesting flying. Just below the camera there, we've got an LED, which is a bright white LED, I believe, and we'll have a look at that when we power up the quad. But it's nice that the entire camera and also VTX assembly are protected by this plastic hood here, very similar to the Walkera F210 and also the Rodeo 150. Looking at the rear, we've got the battery connection point for the JST connector there. On the rear, you can see that we've got the JST battery connector, which is an easy fitment, unlike the old Rodeo 150, which was a bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest, to connect the battery. We've got the whip antenna. Lovely to see a whip antenna instead of a circular. They're far more crash resistant, so that's good to see. And then there's the radio antennas as well. And it looks like Walkera have done away with those static fixed plastic ones which would only hinge up and down. The problem there was that as soon as you had a crash and rolled, they would snap the other way. So these are just flexible and it's the direct antenna there, so that's good to see. Looking at the arms, and we've got what do still look to be proprietary speed controllers due to the fitment at the very end here. They are connected to these tiny little brushless motors which look to be not dissimilar to the size of the motors which were fitted to the Rodeo 150. The props fitted are really nice and they are 3-blade. They have a really nice contour to the blades as well, and the props are push-on and then secured by 2 small screws into the housing of the motor. On the side, we've got a USB port. It's labelled the upgrade port, but ultimately that's the USB port for connecting to the flight controller and programming it. And if we look at the underside, we've got 2 ports here, one of which is an external RX port. Now that on the earlier models, the 150 and the 210, was used to connect an external receiver if, for example, you didn't want to use the Devo controller and instead you wanted to use an FR Sky receiver or some sort. So that's switchable as well below via S-Bus or PPM. And what's nice is that originally with the F210 at least, you had to buy a separate conversion module, whereas they've adopted the 150 setup here where you just simply get that inbuilt, plug in your receiver and away you go after binding it. And then just finally really a look at the overall frame. So we've got a top plate here which looks to be about I would say 1.5mm carbon fibre. The lower frame I would say is about 2mm. So in terms of thickness and durability they should be okay. The F210 was almost unbreakable. The Rodeo 150 people had worries about the arms being plastic. So this is kind of a nice setup because there's not a lot of weight here. These arms should be fairly durable, and obviously being Walkera, being a premium model, this is going to be premium carbon fibre. So if you compare the cheap carbon fibre 3mm to a good quality 1.5mm, that good quality carbon fibre is probably going to be more durable. There is some plastic built up on the side and around the rear as well to probably house and protect all of the internal components. Probably not that necessary, but Walkera do that to make it look like a more rounded product and less of a do-it-yourself, build-your-own type. Time for the all-important weight test. So without the battery, the Rodeo 110 weighs in at just over 100 grams, 101. So with this 850 milliamp battery added, we're up to just below 150, 147 grams. That is slightly heavy, but then this is a 110 class quadcopter, so it's not going to be as light as some of the budget competitors. Also bearing in mind that there are a lot more aesthetic components here to make it look pretty. You could remove those to strip back some of the weight. Overall, the build quality feels exceptional. I'm so used to reviewing budget quadcopters where they just don't seem to have that feeling of real thought. But this does look great. The question now is, does this follow the trend of past Walkera models where the proprietary components meant that it was actually more of an inconvenience than a benefit? But it seems well thought out. It seems that Walkera have hopefully learned some lessons besides the proprietary speed controllers, that is. So I'm looking forward to giving this a test flight. The next thing we're going to do is look at binding it with a transmitter. So as I have the bind and fly version of the Rodeo 110, I don't get a transmitter. Fortunately, I have a Devo7, so I'm going to show you now how to bind the Rodeo 110 to the Devo7 transmitter. First thing you need to do is set all of your switches to the 0 position and make sure throttle is also at 0. You then need to turn on the transmitter and then connect power to the Rodeo 110. You'll get quite a lot of beeping going on, and then the binding process should occur. It's really as simple as that. You'll know if you've bound it successfully because you'll then be able to unlock and lock the rotors using the rudder controls. So if we press and hold left, that means that we're now live, and if I just hold the throttle up a little bit, There you go. If I then hold it to the right, that will disarm the props as such. The other nice feature is that when the quad is armed and ready to go, you'll notice the tiny little red LEDs on the side which show that the quad is armed. That's quite nice from a safety perspective. As per other Walkera models, if we now use the mix controller, we can toggle between different modes. So by default in 0 we're in beginner mode, in 1 we're in intermediate, and in 2 we're in advanced. This is basically, as we know, rate, angle and horizon mode. So in position 0 you won't be able to flip or roll the quadcopter. However, in intermediate mode, the second position, you will be able to flip it, but the quadcopter will still remain quite stable. And in the third mode, as we call it rate mode in proper FPV terminology, you'll be able to do pretty much whatever you want with this quadcopter. So that's it bound to our Devo7 transmitter. Very, very easy. The next thing we'll be doing is flight testing the Rodeo 110. But the flight test will be in part 2 of this review, which has already been filmed and is in edit right now. In the meantime, smash that subscribe button and help us to 5,000 subscribers, plus give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the review so far. We want far more interactivity with our viewers, and so please drop us a comment below. Be it positive or negative, we want your feedback. Finally, thanks again to Buzzflyer for providing the Rodeo 110 for review. Be sure to visit them now at www.buzzflyer.co.uk. Thanks very much for watching.